Good afternoon, everyone. Let's move these recording bubbles. Good afternoon. Welcome to another live here today. I'm Jasmine Beckstrand, owner of Proposal Mastery. And this afternoon, we're going to take a quick look at the subject of persuasion. This is, of course, a contributing player in proposal writing for government awards, and it can be a real barrier or a point of uncertainty or confusion for contractors. So we're going to review some clear strategies you can start implementing right away to immediately boost the persuasiveness of your proposals and offers to the government. So let's jump right in. Okay, I want to start by providing a brief explanation for why persuasion matters in government contracting. Some of you may find the answer obvious or readily apparent, but perhaps some of you are newer, right, to the government market, still in the learning phase, trying to understand the way procurement and acquisition works. So let's just paint the full picture here. I often say compliance gets you through the door, but persuasion gets you selected. Let's take a moment and break that down some. Okay, your proposal is required or mandated, in fact, to be compliant with solicitation instructions and requirements. And that's a non-negotiable, right? If your offer fails to be compliant, it's tossed out of the pool without a second thought or hesitation. That is just a fact and the way government contracting works. That's how it's done. But even if you learn how to pull off putting together a compliant proposal, if you figure out compliance, that only gets you halfway, right? Or as it's stated here, compliance only gets you through the door. You're through the door, but without a strong, real chance of award if compliance is all your proposal offers, right? And the reason I think so many small businesses struggle with the persuasion element is because there's no clear path or explicitly provided instructions in a solicitation on how to be successfully persuasive. Being persuasive requires a certain level of understanding and external market intelligence that is acquired and developed outside of the solicitation. However, once that skill is learned, your proposals feature that esteemed persuasive quality wherein government agency evaluators don't just see a compliant offer, they see an offer that demonstrates why its solution is the best fit for their specific needs, an offer that clearly shows how its value aligns with their agency goals and missions, right? Very ideal, valuable. That's what we're all hoping for when we prepare these offers. So basically, at the end of it all, your proposal isn't just meant to or isn't just supposed to inform. It needs to influence, right? And it offers a solution that inspires confidence in the evaluators. Okay, so not just inform, you want to inform and influence. So to help your business come closer to achieving these outcomes in your offers, all of these right here, we're going to highlight some strategies to strengthen persuasion in your proposals. We're going to go through one at a time here. So strategy number one, know your audience. For government proposals, your audience is who exactly? You might be tempted to answer the government customer. And if so, you're not exactly wrong, but you're not getting granular enough, right? Who is your audience exactly? Your specific audience for your proposal is the evaluators. They are, of course, affiliated with the government agency, but you need to refrain from making the mistake of envisioning some anthropomorphic reality where it is the government entity considering your proposal. In truth, you are submitting your proposal to individuals associated with the government customer, but at the end of the day, they're people just like you and I, right? So when writing your proposal, try to get into their headspace. What are the things or conditions that motivate them? Of course, they will, to a large degree, be attracted to proposals that demonstrate the contractor understands the agency's goals, values, and mission, but that's not all, right? There's also the real need for any decision maker particularly when choosing between competing solutions, to see how each choice offers them results, a real ROI, and a reduction of risk, right? And these are some of the factors, or sort of the factors you would consider when choosing between different options for any product or service. It's no different in the government. If you envision your buying process as an individual regular consumer, these are the factors you consider, and it's the same for government evaluators. And the problem is far too many contractors, they overlook these items. They focus solely on compliance, but compliance can't be the end of your story. In addition to these items, it looks like we had an extra bullet pop up. Okay, so in addition to these items here, right? ROI, risk reduction, measurable results. The most, in addition to those, the most persuasive offers also address this bullet here, right? The evaluator's unspoken concerns. These points are often uncovered through market research. But an example might be a fear that the awardee is unreliable, right, or can't deliver. And perhaps those fears come from a previously poor incumbent, right? Whatever it may be. Those unspoken concerns, they absolutely exist for every opportunity, for every evaluator. And if you're able to uncover them and address them in your proposal, the persuasion and influence of your offer becomes like nearly tangible. Right. And so then one final note, as sort of a global one for this strategy too, is to utilize as you are talking about each of these points here, as you're going through, each of these items here, is to use and mirror language and terminology in the solicitation. And then also really just like the agency at large. For example, the type of language and terminology you see on their website or in their strategic plan, right? By literally speaking their language, you are more able to directly connect with evaluators, and your proposal can better come across as representing a solution and contractor who more intimately understands the agency, right? So here's our strategy number one about knowing your audience, your evaluators. You want to speak directly to them, can be in their headspace, address those unspoken concerns, and use their language, right? Know and speak to your audience. Okay, let's move on now to strategy number two, creating a compelling cover letter or executive summary. So not every solicitation requires a cover letter or executive summary in your proposal, not always required. Should one be required, then, of course, these persuasion tips should be definitely applied. But I do want to note too that because a cover letter or executive summary can be, when done correctly, it can be a really strong first impression. I always opt to include one. In the instance, doing so is optional and doesn't go against or challenge solicitation requirements for like page counts, for example. So if it's optional to include this proposal component, I always vote that you include it. So I just want to have that note here. Cover letters and executive summaries, they're often also not beholden to content requirements. So there's every opportunity for contractors to be creative and maximize their persuasion in this proposal element. And with that freedom and flexibility, your goal should be to create immediate trust, right? You want the evaluators to trust you as a contractor and industry expert. This is most effectively accomplished by tailoring your message to the agency itself. You need to create and show immediate value to them by telling a story and explaining why you are the uniquely and ideally suited provider for their specific needs, their specific wants, and ideal results, right? So your goal is to create trust and communicate that unique value, often in the form of, most regularly told in the form of a story. That seems to be the most effective way to phrase or structure, for example, a cover letter. So in other words, right, looking at these notes here, in other words, at all costs, what you want to do is you want to avoid a copy and paste template that was generated by AI, right? I see this far too often. If you think government evaluators are going to be unable to tell you used ChatGPT or whatever automated generator to write your narrative, you're mistaken, and the error can come at a great cost. Your cover letter and executive summaries are, like I said, they're the first impressions for your proposal deliverable, and there's probably no poorer first impression than a letter that the recipient can clearly tell wasn't one you took the time to write or prepare, right? A copy and paste AI letter communicates one thing, in my view anyway, communicates one thing, that you don't actually know the customer, and you didn't take the time to learn them, right? And the outcome of that sort of a letter is the evaluators continue on, right? Because it's the forefront, your cover letter, executive summary, it's that first impression. So they read a copy and paste AI like letter, right? They're going to look at that, recognize that it was, generated, and continue on with the rest of your proposal already with sentiments in mind that are the opposite of trust, right? The absolute wrong foundation you want to start on. So my advice to you is to use the persuasive strategy of a compelling cover letter or executive summary, but only do it if you're prepared and willing to take it seriously. And you should, because I guarantee your strongest competitor certainly is. So if you're thinking to yourself, well, I'd rather use AI, but if that gives me maybe the wrong first impression, I'll opt to exclude one. You can do that. We can make an argument or a case about whether it's better to submit no cover letter or submit an AI cover letter. I might opt for the no cover letter, but I want to make it clear to you, you should know that this is something worth practicing because like I said, your strongest competition is using this persuasive strategy. They are including in all of their offers a compelling front piece. And so that's something to, like I said, to practice and then execute regularly. This is a strategy I always recommend businesses incorporate into all of their proposals and offers. Okay, strategy number 3 here. Build credibility with evidence. Sometimes contractors get too hyper focused on explaining in the proposals what their solution is, how it works, operates, or will be delivered to satisfy the requirement by articulating the solution, right? A good thing, a necessary thing. But that shouldn't be, again, where your story ends. Okay. Obviously, you need to articulate your solution, but in order to also persuade and influence evaluators in your favor, you need to back up your claims. Provide whatever information you can as evidence or proof to strengthen your credibility and help evaluators build confidence in your capabilities and your solution. Ideally, what you want to do are provide measurable results, measurable outcomes. This can be in the form of data, case studies, client testimonials, or success stories. Whatever you have, make sure to share. The only solicitation requirement that like explicitly requests you provide evidence is found in the form of past performance. But again, when providing past performance, don't just explain what you did. Go a step further and explain what measurable outcomes and benefits your past performance customers experienced as a direct result of your performance. So not just what you did, but the transformation and change that your customer experienced as a result of your performance. So build credibility with evidence. Another big one that can be sprinkled throughout every section of your proposal. Now, transitioning to strategy number 4, quite natural transition here because we were just talking about and understanding, you need to provide evidence to build up your credibility, describing your previous history, your past work, things that you have done so you can better persuade and influence. And in addition to that, we're going to apply that concept now directly to your prospective customer. So strategy number 4 is to emphasize benefits over features for your customer, your prospective customer. We're going from supplying measurable outcomes from your previous work to now explaining the measurable outcomes and benefits the agency themselves will receive in working with you. Okay, so that means altogether in your proposal, you need to, number 1, articulate how your solution works or is delivered. Number 2, supply evidence that your work in the past has been reliable. And then number 3, explain the results and meaningful impact your solution will have for the agency in question and at hand, right? Specifically to them. And as you do all this, ensure to articulate why these impacts should matter to the agency. Make it very clear for them. Okay, outline the transformations that will come as a result of your performance. Complete the whole story for them. This, of course, has greater weight when those impacts and transformations, when you're able to relate those directly back to the agency's unique needs and goals, which you've hopefully uncovered with your market research, right? Okay, so here's the full story. Make sure that you don't just note the impact and then assume that the agency will make that connection on their own. You need to complete the story for them and explain why they should care about these transformations. Switching gears now to strategy number 5, highlighting your differentiators. Throughout your proposal, you want to repeatedly highlight what you offer that others don't. Okay, so some examples of that might be specialized certifications, maybe innovative tools or exclusive resources, perhaps proprietary, right, methods or products. Whatever your solution, ensure that as you are articulating its details, features, and benefits, you're simultaneously noting why it is superior to industry competitors, why it is better than everyone else. What does your offer include that everyone else lacks, right? That's the question you need to be repeatedly answering for the agency. And these meaningful differentiators, they're a perfect opportunity to show your prospective customer how you are uniquely prepared to not just satisfy but exceed their contract performance requirements. You're saying, I'm not just going to do everything you're asking for, I'm the best option because if you go with me, you'll also benefit from all these other factors exclusive to me. Okay, if that makes sense. So on top of that, of course, these differentiators, like some of these other strategies, you might be noticing a theme here. These differentiators stand alone, very powerful, very effective, but they're even more persuasive on top of that and more influential if you're successfully able to connect them back to the agency and the evaluator's unique needs, unique pain points, unique desired outcomes. Those are things you always need to have, on your tabletop, in another window, visible and ready to go as you're preparing your content. So we have right here, more powerful, you can maximize your persuasion by, again, connecting back to the specific agency. So that's right there, strategy number 5. And then we'll go ahead and address one more. We've got one more here today. This final strategy, number 6, and that's to polish. Okay, polish. When I use the phrase polish your proposal, which is something I've said over the years, polish your proposal, I'm referring to quite a few things. My clients and I use a complete process to address not just these items here. We go, a little deeper into additional proposal characteristics, but the final polish of a proposal development is a really important step. In essence, the idea is to go through your whole deliverable to ensure you have several items, a handful of items checked off. And right here today, I want to talk about these 3. You want your proposal to be clean, clear, and confident, okay? By clean, I mean exactly that. The visual of your proposal is another reflection, okay, of the type of work and quality you produce as a business. Plain and simple. Never, ever, please, never submit an offer that is messy, jumbled, disconnected, confusing in its structure or its formatting. You need consistent formatting, okay? The consistent formatting, a clean look, it builds trust and it builds a reputation of professionalism for you and your business. Every proposal section should be cohesive, logically placed, okay? And any graphics and visuals, they need to be used to reinforce your narrative and communicate like actual meaning. They're not intended and should never be used just to eat up space or be decorative. Okay, so when I say polish your proposal to ensure it's clean, these are the sort of details I'm referring to. Now, clear and confident, those checks pertain to your narrative itself, your tone of writing, so to speak. You want an active voice, plain language, void of unnecessary jargon, and a professional and confident, right here, yet approachable tone. So all around, your content should be straightforward enough for every evaluator to fully understand, and also have that tone that achieves persuasion and influence. There needs to be a level of confidence in your narrative. Don't mistake excessive descriptions and narratives for persuasiveness. Precision and clarity, in my experience, precision and clarity are much more impactful than complexity for the sake of complexity. You're wanting to talk directly to the evaluator. You're wanting to connect directly with them. And the best way to do that, just like with anybody in conversation and dialogue, is to be precise and clear. Don't overcomplicate. Okay, so that was our couple strategies today to increase persuasiveness in your proposals. Thanks everybody for joining the live, or for those of you who are revisiting the replay. Going forward in your proposal projects, ensure to implement these strategies to achieve, again, that greater level of persuasion and influence in your offers. And always remember, compliance equals eligibility, but it's persuasion that equals award. So be confident in your business solutions and your proposals, and let me know how you see these strategies positively impact your projects and your win rate all around. As always, feel free to revisit this mini training, these weekly mini sessions here, either on Facebook while they're available, or you can hop on over to our new YouTube page. The link for that YouTube page is in the bio of our Facebook group. But if you can't locate it for whatever reason, don't hesitate to message me. Same thing if you have questions about the proposal industry or process, or even how a certain proposal strategy might apply to a live opportunity, feel free to message me at any time. And until then, I'll catch you guys next week. So thanks so much.